Good day, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Sound Archives. My name is Christian Maiorino, and I am the host of this channel. So, today's episode is going to focus on another album ranking, and we are going to be ranking the albums of none other than thrash metal legends Slayer. Fortunately, don't own any Slayer albums on vinyl, so I didn't put up any Slayer albums behind me. That's why you don't see them. But I did throw a couple others up there just because. Um, so anyway, I thought it'd be fun to do to rank the albums from Slayer. At least as of 2019, they're technically, I guess you could say they're broken up, or at the very least, they're not considered an active band by this point, but who knows what the future holds. I mean, we've seen this happen with other bands in the past where they say they retire and then they come back, but I mean, we'll see what happens. Obviously, losing their the lead guitarist, Jeff Hanneman, who passed away several years ago now, could be a factor in that. But anyway, I've been a fan of Slayer since I was probably about 13 years old. Do consider them to be one of my favorite bands. Sadly, I didn't get to see them on the very last tour, but I have seen them live a few times. They've always been awesome, and I like. I'll say this: I do like most of their albums. I probably, well, as you'll see in the ranking, I probably favor the more classic era albums, but even the latter day ones I still think are most of what they've done is pretty good. So to start off at the bottom of my list, there were kind of two vying for my least favorite. I don't hate either one of these, but I don't just everything else they've done is so much better. But the one at the very bottom for me is Diabolos and Musica, which came out in 1998. I remember when this album came out, or by the time it came out, I wasn't really that into it. I don't know, I kind of stopped paying attention to Slayer for a little bit around the time this album came out. I don't know, it just struck me as strange. They did away with the classic Slayer logo, and they just had this kind of strange looking person on there. Was he wearing a mask? Is he not wearing a mask? I don't know. The album does have kind of a new metal tinge to it, but aside from that, there's still some songs I like on it. The opening track, Bitter Peace, is probably my favorite off the album. Death's Hand is pretty good. Stain of Mind, which is I think one that probably maybe the most popular or most well known off the album. That one's not bad. Perversions of Pain is a pretty good song, and Scrum, just towards the end there, is pretty good. I mean, the rest of it is okay, but gotta have an album at the bottom there. Next up is the last album they did, Repentless, from 2015. So this one is the only studio album they did with Gary Holt on guitar. Of course, Gary Holt being known from Exodus. I like the album cover. I think it has a pretty cool album cover. Most of the tracks on here are written exclusively by Kerry King, with the exception of Piano Wire, which is a song that Jeff Hanneman wrote. But I do love the opening. The opening track or tracks, Delusions of Savior, and Repentless. I also like the music video of that song where they have like the prison riot going on. Some other ones on here that I really like. When the Stillness Comes is a good song. Atrocity Vendor, Pride and Prejudice, and You Against You are probably the highlights for me on this one. But again, I don't know. It's still not as good as some of the other albums that Slayer's put out over the years. So, all right. Next up is 2001's God Hates Us All. So this one had a couple different album covers to it. The unfortunate distinction that this album had is being released on September 11th, 2001. Obviously, you couldn't have expected what happened that day, releasing an album titled God Hates Us All. But anyway, this one I like quite a bit. The opening track on there, or opening track, Darkness of Christ and Disciple, is probably my favorite. Just killer, angry song right there. God Send Death is pretty good. Bloodline is another highlight for me on this one. And I like the video on that one too. It's where they're all getting buckets of blood thrown on them and everything. Still like the album prior to that. Still got that kind of new metal tinge to it, but overall, I just think the songs were better on there. It was just heavier, more aggressive. So next up on my list, I have the 2006 album, Christ Illusion. So this album, we had Dave Lombardo coming back in on drums here. They kind of on this one, you also had Slayer kind of coming back to to their more traditional type of sound on this one. I love the opening track, Flesh Storm. Conspiracy is just, fast and ferocious. Skeleton Christ is a good one. You got the song Jihad, written from the perspective of a suicide bomber. Eyes of the Insane, another one that I really like. Overall, really good album. Really good. It's a good return to form, and great to see that the classic lineup coming back together and putting out a great record. Next up on my list is one that I actually have on CD. That would be 1994's Divine Intervention. I remember buying this CD the day it came out back in 1994, and one of the things that I loved about it, it was just kind of shocking, is that, when you open it up, you get the CD, the dude with his, got Slayer carved into his arms right there, and I don't know, you just thought that was cool as hell when I was looking, when I opened that up when I was 13. I did like this album quite a bit when it came out. I still like it now, but I don't listen to it as much. But it was the first album that had Paul Bostaph on drums. And right away, the first opening track, Killing Fields, the first thing you hear right there are the drums, and he was great. I think he was a great drummer. Maybe I still prefer Dave Lombardo. A lot of people say that, but I don't know. I think they're both amazing drummers in his style. I think, he fit perfectly right in with Slayer, I think. But the opening track, Killing Fields, awesome. Sex, Murder, Art, Fictional Reality, Ditto Head, the title track, Circle of Beliefs. Everything on here is really good. It was still, it still sounded like Slayer, but I wouldn't say it was quite as good as some of the other albums that we'll get to a little bit later here. But still very solid. So, next up on my list is 2009 album World Painted Blood. This album is really good. I think of the latter-day Slayer albums, it's definitely my favorite. This one also, again, is a classic lineup, the follow-up to Christ Illusion. Classic lineup, of course, being Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman on guitars, Dave Lombardo on drums, and Tom Araya on bass and vocals. Again, you got the title track, World Painted Blood, Unit 731, Snuff. I just love the guitar intro to that. Beauty Through Order, another great song. Hate Worldwide, Public Display, Dismemberment, Psychopathy Red, American. Really strong album overall. And sadly, would be the last that would be released with Jeff Hanneman on guitar. Of course, he passed away in 2013. All right, so Now we're coming up to the real classic era of Slayer. And next up on my list is this album right here, South of Heaven. This album right here, the first half is really awesome. I mean, you got some of Slayer's best material. The title track, South of Heaven. It has that strange, like at the very end, where that kind of guitar feedback going on for like 2 minutes. I don't know, just very strange, I guess. Behind the Crooked Cross, another one of my favorites, Mandatory Suicide, Live Undead. Of course, you got the cover of the Judas Priest song, Dissident Aggressor. Silent Screams, another one that I really love. Second half of the album does drag a little bit. Some of these songs I don't like as much. Spill the Blood, Cleanse the Soul, Read Between the Lies. So the album, it has the great songs off here are really great songs that are not as good or just really kind of forgettable in my opinion. But it's still classic Slayer. Obviously, this came out after the landmark Rain and Blood album, which we'll get to later in the list. So it seemed like they were kind of purposely not trying to replicate Rain and Blood, but still a great album. Alright, so next up on my list is this one right here, 1990, Seasons in the Abyss. Now, this was the first Slayer album that I purchased when I was about 13 years old. And of course, right away, the War Ensemble, the first track is awesome. Blood Red. I love the kind of just the bouncy riff in that one. It's awesome. Spirit in Black is great. Expendable Youth, another slower, heavy one. Dead Skin Mask, you have that kind of creepy voice type thing going on later in the song. Hallowed Points, Fast and Heavy. Skeletons of Society, another cool song. Temptation, Born of Fire, and of course the kind of slow, medieval, doomy Seasons in the Abyss title track right there at the end. Start to finish, I think overall it's a stronger album than the one that preceded it, South of Heaven. Of course, it's not at the very top of my list, but it's close there. I still like this album a lot, and again, this was my introduction to Slayer, and I was hooked pretty much right away. So, Seasons in the Abyss. So next up, Haunting the Chapel. It's not a full-length album. I realize that it's an EP, but I think it's only natural that I gotta include it in the list. I mean, you got Chemical Warfare and Captor of Sin, two classic Slayer songs right there that were, mainstays in their live set. And of course, the title track, Haunting the Chapel, is also great. And this version that I have has the song Aggressive Perfector, which was on, I guess it was the first song that they wrote, or at least the first one that had any type of release, which was on one of the Metal Massacre compilations from Metal Blade. But yeah, I mean, it's only a couple tracks, but it packs a punch, and it's freaking killer. All right, now we're getting to the top three. So, number 3 for me is going to be the debut, Show No Mercy. I love this album. I like the cover too. Maybe it's a little cartoony looking, but I mean, of course, it's the classic Slayer logo right there with the pentagram and the swords and the goat guy right here. This album, it's at times it kind of I think it sounds a little bit like Kill 'Em All, the first Metallica album, but definitely a lot more evil. But I mean, you got classics here. Evil Has No Boundaries, The Antichrist, Die by the Sword, Black Magic. I love Tormentor, that shriek at the end. Tormentor! I can't even get it right now. But, Tom Araya, he's just like shrieking up a storm on all of these songs. I love it. The album is a little bit more rooted in traditional metal, but you still get a lot of that classic Slayer here. Those kind of schizophrenic guitar solos and just the fastness, the ferociousness of it. Definitely a classic. Which is why it's getting up there near the top of my list. Number 2 on my Slayer album ranking is this one right here, Hell Awaits. When I first did this list, I actually had Show No Mercy, and I actually had Show No Mercy above this one, but I think I like this one a little bit better. There was definitely a progression here when you had Show No Mercy, and then even the Haunting the Chapel EP to this album. This album isn't quite as rooted in that kind of traditional heavy metal sound as much. The production on it is still a little rough. It sounds like it was recorded like in like a cave or a cavern somewhere where they're doing satanic rituals. I think this is Slayer probably at their most evil and most satanic. I love the title track where it opens up with that that kind of chanting going on. This album is a bit more kind of progressive. There's a lot more complex songwriting and song structures right there, but title track is great. Kill Again. I love that song. It's just, I don't know, so ferocious and evil. At Dawn They Sleep. Praise of Death. Necrophiliac. I mean, man. And then I love the way this album kind of booked, the last track, Hardening of the Arteries, just kind of ends with the same riff that starts, that Hell Awaits starts with. So it kind of, ends just as it begins. But I love the album cover too. I mean, it's just all these kind of demonic figures right there, getting their intestines ripped out and everything. But awesome. So now we're coming to number 1, and I think we all know what that is. This one right here, 1986's Rain and Blood. Probably not much of a shock. A lot of Slayer fans probably put this as their number 1. A lot of people regard it as Slayer's best, and it's can't be wrong right there. I mean, easily maybe some of the best 29 minutes of heavy metal that exists, period. Very extreme metal for the time, and even so much more extreme stuff has come out since then, but I don't know, is it that much more extreme? I don't know. It's really hard to top this, I think, even by today's standards, I think. But anyway, Angel of Death, Piece by Piece, Necrophobic, Altar of Sacrifice, Jesus Saves, Criminally Insane Reborn, Epidemic, Postmortem, of course, title track, Raining Blood. The first time, this was the second CD that I purchased from Slayer. Obviously, I just said the first one I got was Seasons in the Abyss, because that was the newest album at the time, but everyone always said this was their best, so naturally it was the second one I got. And I remember the first time I put this CD on, listen to Angel of Death, and just that scream at the beginning where it's so high, I honestly thought for a split second there that was a guitar. And then where the kind of starts dropping out, and I finally realized that it was a singer just screaming that high. I was just like, holy shit. If I wasn't hooked with Seasons, I was definitely hooked by this album. And obviously I went back and bought everything else. But, man, with this one, it's, this is, of course, a legendary producer, Rick Rubin. This is the first album that he produced for Slayer, and I think whereas Hell Awaits was kind of had the longer, strong song structures and whatnot. Like this one, it's like they took what they did with Hell Awaits and they just like wound it and just tightened it up into this massive ball of fury. Not just in the songwriting and the fastness of the songs, and but the production as well. Whereas Hell Awaits is I guess the production still sounds a little bit rough, but it sounds like it's in a cavern. The sound is just a lot tighter. The production, tone of it, but what else can I say? So one of the interesting things about Slayer is that they didn't have too many people in and out of the band. I mean, you had the classic lineup there for, um, obviously from '83 up through to the early '90s. Then you had Paul Bostaph come in on drums for a while there, and Dave Lombardo came back for a while for a couple albums, and then he left again. Paul Bostaph came back, and then of course Gary Holt coming in to replace Jeff Hanneman. Will we see anything else from these guys? Doesn't seem like we will at this point, but who knows? Kerry King. It seems like he might still be itching to do something. If not Slayer, maybe something else. Who knows? We'll see. It'd be great to see him do something else. So anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below. Let me know how you rank these albums, which one's your least favorite to favorite, or however you want to do it. Coming into the new year right now, I'm going to be trying to post a video at least once a week. So kind of the structure I'm going to go with here is week 1 each month, do an album ranking. Week number 2, I'm going to try to review either a music documentary or a concert video or movie or what have you. Third week, I'm going to be doing a concert review. Even if I haven't seen like a recent show, I'm going to try to just talk about a previous concert experience. So that should be a fun one. And then the fourth week will be probably just a wild card. It'll be, I don't know, maybe a new album review, maybe, who knows, whatever I decide to do at that point. So anyway, those of you who have been watching and subscribing to the channel, thank you. I hope you continue to check out the content that that I have coming up here. And until next time, this is the Sound Archive sounding off.